Hey everybody, wanted to kick it again one more time about a couple things. I'm an alcoholic, amongst other things. I talked about my belief or my need for a higher power. There's a reasoning behind that. I said before, there is no human power that can keep me sober. I've proved that to myself and others 1,000 times over. So, and when I talked about my higher power, I talk about God. I'm careful when I talk about it because there's no surefire way to send a drunk running for the hills more often than not to bring up the G word, you know, which was a friend of mine said I should just share some experiences and some stories and stuff. I'll show you the insanity of it because, as I said, I was raised a Christian. I'm extremely Bible studied. But whatever. We're talking about a higher power, and because here's the thing. So I'll tell you a story. So here's me. Here's the insanity of it. And while I've been a Bible Christian and whatnot and stuff, I always had my resentment, my war with God, my push and pull. I mean, bucking this authority uh, has always been part of my story. Uh, so, anyway, here's the insanity. So, I do a long prison bit, right? My first bit was a nice big chunk of change. It was a lot of time, and I get out. When I get out, I need to get high, right? I need to drink, but I wanted to get high. I had learned this heroin in prison at this time in my life, and boy, did it meet all my needs. Powdered alcohol, it meant all my needs at the time. I wasn't I wasn't out there stumbling around drunk and incoherent. I wasn't going through alcohol seizures and hallucinating and talking to dead people and seeing snakes. I wasn't, heroin seemed to be a solution where alcohol failed me for about 10 years of my life. And anyway, here's the insanity. I get out of prison after all this time and I need to get some dope. So where do you get some dope? I mean, you don't just run around asking people, "Hey, you got any heroin?" So I needed a plan. I had a couple friends that lived in a really bad side of Detroit. It is, if there is any really good sides, I'm not sure. But I went to the west side because I knew a couple people lived over there, and I would go over there and cop some dope. But as the drug culture was, sometimes I would get ripped off or some shady shit would happen and it would cause problems with my friendships and stuff like that. So I learned this neat little thing. I don't know how I come about it. A lot of my life was a blur, man. I'm just telling you. So, but I found out if you go get a hooker, not for sex, but if you go get a hooker, the hookers knew where all the dope was, right? And if you just tried to give somebody some money to give you some dope, they might rip you off or something. But if you make a relationship with a hooker, you know, they're not going to rip you off more often than not because, especially for a heroin addict, you need it every day. You're going to be there every day. And they don't want to mess up their good thing, what's happening either. So, and the police are always raiding places and shutting shit down, and people are running out, and new suppliers are coming on, and they got their ear to the ground, you know. So it became this habit of mine, almost almost every day as part of my life. I would get up in the morning and I would drive to the west side of Detroit. I would pick up a hooker. There was one or two, one especially I knew way better than others. Her name was Yvonne. It was a funny thing. I hate admitting all this shit now, but one time I brought her home and my daughters thought she was awesome and my mom liked her. She was actually a nice person, but she was addicted to crack, you know. And so I would go in the morning and pick her up, and it was pretty much, hey, get me a bundle of dope, and I'll buy you a rock, you know. And that was it. So we could run over and get her a crack rock and let her smoke some crack, and then we would go get some dope. Well, that was my daily routine. Now there was also partying routines and stuff like that, where if I had taken some hostages and I had a group of people and we were going to party it up and we had some money and I was going to go get some more dope, I would go over there and get it at night. Now check this out. So here's the thing, because I remember when my first sponsor talked to me, we were going through the steps and he brought up God. And I was like, whoa, hang on there, man. You know what I mean? So let's go back to the story. So I would go to Detroit, you know, on party nights, late at night. Very bad town. I would go over on Finkel. For those of you back in Detroit, you know, over in the Brightmoor neighborhood, I would go over down the 5 Mile, Finkel, and I would go to the liquor store down by Blackstone, I think it was, and I would pick up a hooker, pick up my hooker, Yvonne, maybe, and we would go cop some dope. Now, it was a real bad drug neighborhood. All the street lights were shot out. The police didn't go in there very much, and I'm on parole. I mean, fuck. So, anyway, I got a gun in the car. So, because guns was always part of my story too, quite obviously. That's why the United States made an operation to take them from me. But, so I would drive down to Finco and get Yvonne, and we would go down a dark street in a very scary neighborhood, go to an abandoned house. We usually like go around to the back of the abandoned house, and there'd be a window open like about this big, right, you know? And you just go there and tick, 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 knock on the window, and somebody would answer, sup, you know, or whatever, and you would slide your money in there, and they would slide some dope out. You don't see nobody, you don't do nothing. Again, drive to Detroit, go to an abandoned house on a street with no lights and no cops, with a hooker, put some money through the window, and get some stuff out. And I was so fiending, my stomach would be woo, 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 woo. I couldn't wait. I would get that shit, jump in my car before I left the driveway, fill up a bottle cap, put my dope in there, take a piece of cigarette butt, and whoop, get my shit right then and there. Trust, I don't know who this motherfucker is, right? So, and again, I'll tell you another story. When I'm in prison, I'll try not to be too many names and locations in this and that, but I was in a maximum secure, high security prison. And at one point, and there was this guy, his name was Fat Joe, okay? Now, Fat Joe had murdered his entire family. Literally. He killed his whole family. I think that's the guy Richard Pryor was talking about when he was doing a comedy about the guy who killed his own family and got caught with the cat in the basket. Anyway, Fat Joe's a murderer. Murderer, not like a gang murderer or my mob friends fucking shooting each other or nothing like that. He was a murderer, whatever. So, anyway, Fat Joe had made a little bit of moonshine when we were in the joint. Now, Fat Joe worked out outdoors in a farm-like area, and he'd take care of baby cows because some of the prisons were self-sufficient in so many ways back in the days. And anyway, so Fat Joe took care of the cows, the baby calves, and there were cats. There were cats around, and Fat Joe had taken a liking to these cats, and they liked him. Well, anyway, somebody had told Fat Joe one time that somebody was being mean to his cats. So Fat Joe gave him a bad shot of moonshine and made him blind. Okay. So anyway, Fat Joe, he was not a lot of people monkeyed with him and stuff, but I finds out, hey, Fat Joe, he makes a little bit of liquor, some moonshine. So I'm like, man, I sure would like some liquor. So I go to Fat Joe, the guy who murdered his whole family and done made somebody blind not long ago. And I think, this guy's okay. He doesn't seem too terribly bad to me, I guess. I think I can trust him, to get my stuff. And he would give me a little honey bottle of liquor, and I would drink it and get bombed. So it's funny, when I got sober and I started to do my steps, my sponsor brought up God, a higher power, right off of step 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, whoa, buddy, hold up with that shit. I don't just fucking trust everybody. This was the insanity. I could go, even in California, to MacArthur Park, to a dude with tattoos all over his face, give him some money, somebody I don't know from Adam. He'll give me some stuff, and I'll shoot it right in my veins. There's no testing process. There's none of that. And for any of you who are familiar with drug culture, drug dealers tend to knock off a heroin addict once in a while. It's good for business. Most drug dealers that I know, that I did time with, they would do it occasionally. Most of the time when they got a new batch, or if they were in competition, they would give somebody a hot shot. Because the truth to be told, as soon as word went out, somebody got somebody's shit and OD'd and died. Well, then everybody was fucking heading over there to get the shit. They got the fucking bomb. And they would occasionally knock people off intentionally. So, again, here was the deal. When the thought or the subject of God come up, this is the lifestyle I'm living. And then I was like, whoa, buddy, put on the fucking brakes. What do you take me for? That is fucking insane. That's crazy. Now, I want to talk about some of the importance of it. Not just to mention today in these crazy times with these fucking lockdowns and all this and all this fucking shit and stuff like that, how isolation and how difficult it is for a recovering alcoholic or an addict to be separated from his flock. So, having a higher power in times you're alone. I will tell you another story that came. I don't talk about this too publicly and too often for a variety of reasons. And one foremost and most pressing, Linda doesn't like when I speak about it. Others are tired of hearing about it. And with other people, there's ramifications. But irregardless, I would like to say this in terms of what a higher power meant as well. Okay, so after I got sober after almost 22 years in prison, 3 marriages, 2 careers, all this. After I had gotten sober, and then I had got a divorce with my wife, I'm living some sobriety now, free. I ended up getting in a relationship with a narcissist, a sociopath, not an overt narcissist, not what they call a classic narcissist, not somebody who looks at themselves in the mirror a lot and this and that, or you can see them coming a mile away. They're fairly easy to be, you know, shrugged off. I'm talking about a covert narcissist, a true blue bona fide sociopath, uh, and not an asshole. See, just like there's heavy drinkers that are not necessarily alcoholics, there's assholes that are not necessarily narcs or sociopaths. Some people may, there's woman beaters, there's cheaters, there's stuff like that. That doesn't necessarily make them a narc, uh, a true narc that has no empathy. I got into a relationship with a narc that had at least, I wouldn't know all this till later on and after, at least 3 suicides with ex relationships in its past, 2 people in prison for very lengthy terms. It had a trophy locker. It kept diaries and stuff to keep track of dates because it thought very compartmentalized. There was I didn't know all this stuff till after, because here's the odd thing. The crazy thing is, again, I didn't know what that was. I've been in prison a long time. I met bad people. Let me tell you this. I met bad people. My cellmate for a while, Chicky DiMartino, he was a hitman for the Colombo family. Chicky had killed 22 people that they know about, or maybe know about, or suspect. But I'm here to tell you, Chicky wasn't altogether a bad guy. In a way, he was a decent friend, and I don't know. He just did his mob stuff. They killed each other and they did their things and they took over and they did their stuff. I met some really bad people, but most of them, as far as I knew, it was some type of a passion driven or something. Either it was alcohol or drugs, or maybe they caught their wife sleeping with somebody, or maybe there was a beef somewhere, or I don't know. A lot of it was passion driven, and they weren't necessarily all cold hearted motherfuckers and what have you. Okay. When I was involved with the narc, I seen its mask slip twice on 2 occasions. And if you've ever seen such a thing as that, there's nothing more terrifying. Absolutely nothing to watch another human being go completely blank. No light. No light in the eyes. Nothing there. Nothing at all. I would say I was in this relationship for almost a year and a month, and I went through the whole gambit. I went through the love bombing, the devaluation, and eventually the discard, and very methodically. And I had no idea of the stuff that was going on. I was living a happy, awesome life. I was sober for 2 years, got in a new relationship, things were going, you know. I had given up everything I was doing. I gave up my music to support its music. I gave up my job to support her career. And I thought everything was good. You have no idea what's happening. It wasn't until all the shit come down that fucking my friends were bailing out, and I ended up homeless, and I didn't know what the fuck was happening when the carpet was yanked right underneath, right when we were at the peak of contentment and feeling home. I guess I had always, as an alcoholic and addict, felt homesick for a place that doesn't exist, if that makes any sense to somebody. So, anyway, it was taking my phone and or on my home computer and texting messages to herself and telling other people I did it. It was using my email and sending stuff and doing. It was so insane, and I had no idea none of this was going on. I come home and hey, and how's it going and this and that. I'm like, I'm gonna go outside, smoke a cigarette and this and that, and then it would be say, oh, Kenny's really bad. I don't know what's gonna happen. The insanity. I nearly, by the end of it, when it all went down, it was the first time, even in sobriety, I'd contemplated suicide. I thought I was completely fucking insane. It was making this whole story and scheme to put me back in prison for something I didn't do. I didn't know what was going on. It had so many affairs that I can't even keep track of it, and I don't even know how it happened until I knew some of them were happening right in front of my face, and I never even seen it. But here's the point. I'm not going to talk any more about that story, only to get to the point being was, if you've ever been involved in something like that, you'll know that you're alone. They got to all your friends before you knew what was happening. And by the time you started reacting or doing something, you were falling into the trap. They have already had you separate yourself from most of your support group and your people in a process. They had turned many of your friends and people against you, and the ones that were truly your friends, they've sown enough seeds of doubt and stuff between you and them till you didn't know who was your enemy and who was your friend, and may have found yourself confiding in somebody that was working for them and telling somebody who truly cared about you to stay away from you. And what happens is, and of course, after all this happens and stuff starts coming out and coming out, well, I'm just telling everybody, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh God. Well, then people get sick of hearing it. They don't want to fucking hear it. They don't, like, oh shit, Kenny's calling again. It's going to be more of this shit and stuff. So the fact is, you get really alone. And then, unlike many things like alcoholics have support groups, uh, overeaters have support groups, divorced people have support. Everything's got a fucking support group. But what do you do with this? Now, I know you can go on Facebook and there's narcissistic abuse support groups and this and that, but let me tell you what, those are beacons for narcs. They're beacons for narcs. I've been involved with a few, and the fucking narcs that are on there are it's rife with them, you know. So what do you fucking do? I discourage people from going to therapy because usually most therapists don't have a lot of experience with this. They're going to take you through a journey to dig into your childhood about and uncover something that you think's fucking wrong with you when there was nothing wrong with you. And again, I say, with all my years and all my years out of society, I didn't know what the fuck this was. I never said something like that. I'm telling you, I watched things in prison that I still have nightmares about that you can't put into words. I've seen and was in some stuff of human beings acting so completely carnal, you can't describe it. I've never seen a monster or a creature such as that thrived on destroying lives and stuff. So again, now the point goes all the way back. The point being made is having a higher power. After being drunk or intoxicated most of my whole life, and now with some new sobriety, 2 years sober, my whole world comes crashing down. My whole world, everything falls apart. And I have nobody. I'm alone. When you go to AA, they're like, oh, don't talk about the narcissist and or whatever, you gotta let it go and you gotta move on and but something happens so fucking damaging to your psyche and scars your soul so bad. Not only that, you have to be somewhat vigilant or it'll come back. So you have to have some defenses all the time because they never go completely away. Never. So I had to have something. Again, even in my sobriety and everything, my friendships were rattled. I didn't know who to trust and who not to trust. There was not a support group for this thing. No medication would fix it or anything like that. I mean, that's an easy out for some people in a lot of things in a lot of ways. And there's no therapy gonna fucking help it. And I had to learn a life lesson in sobriety because we stay sober with the group, one drunk talking to another and staying in the middle of the herd, man, so you don't get picked off. There's strength in numbers. But what do you do in a thing like that? I'm going to court and facing false allegations for friends of mine that had an affair with it and are trying to cover that up. And it's crazy. And look at me. I'm a fucking target. I'm an ex-con. I did 22 years in prison. I'm a violent fucking criminal. I'm a drug addict. And here's Miss Whatever saying he's dangerous and they did all this fucking shit. Man, you know what? Thank God the judge seen through it. Thank God 2 judges seen through it. Thank God that happened. But again, the point being is there was a time when I felt really alone. And something someone, something had to help me get through. I made some mistakes. I lashed out some. I got whacked out at times. It was crazy. But the one thing I didn't do is I didn't pick up a drink or a drug. If it's the only thing I did right, I didn't pick up a drink or a drug. And oddly enough, there were a lot of people rooting against me. There were people who I thought were very close and dear to me, who it would have been, the whole thing would have been a lot easier on them and their roles to play had I went out. Now, I like to say also, it wasn't all just godliness and everything else. I'm a blackout drinker. And one of the reasons I didn't drink is because of what I might do. I don't know what I'm going to do when I drink and I'm out of it. And I was terrified. I was fucking terrified that if I drank and blacked out, I would wake up in a jail cell or something with a prosecutor or U.S. attorney saying, hey, do you know what you did? No, it wasn't going to go down like that. So the gist of this is, for me, we don't drink or pick up no matter what. We have a higher power. That's where my sobriety comes from. And when there's times when you're alone, you have to have something you can carry. A narcissist attack. Narcissists are attracted to empaths. They get fuel from them, their lights. Narcissist believes they are entitled, and for some reason, it's not happening. Now, knowing what I know now, which I didn't know then because I didn't know what that was, okay, is the shared responsibility. Because I was talking before about Al-Anons. It takes two to tango when you're married to a drunk. I don't know how many women I know have been married to drunks and went and married another one. Or guys the same way. The bad thing about it is a dynamic with a narcissistic relationship is empaths are often attracted to them. And the honesty is, as alcohol, in the beginning it worked. So I felt like, and I still feel like, and when I say some people, when you get sober, you think everything's just going to be great and all your dreams are going to come true and stuff all the time. But I had to believe that I had been gone. I went to prison when I was 19 and I had been gone most of my life, right? I didn't go to the bar when I was 21. I didn't, enjoy my 30th birthday party, which was going to be a big bash. I didn't have none of that. And I feel like, and I often feel like, there's a lot of life lessons I got to catch up on. There's a lot of things in life other people fucking know. They've had their experiences in a natural process, you know. I mean, graduating from high school, or your college days, or your fucking prom, or being in dating games and different things, or going to clubs, I didn't experience like any of that fucking shit. I went to prison as a kid, and then I came out as a dysfunctional adult, and with this addiction, and which was the only default I had, was my drink and my addiction. But I'll tell you, even early on, when this shit was going on and going bad, I was playing the victim too. I mean, well, I was. However, my mom told me, which was pretty awesome. My mom said, you may have been victimized, but sweetheart, you are not a victim. So, we accept our role in it. And then we continue on and help others. But again, the point of the whole thing was the necessity for a higher power. And then, as in a tradition of experience, strength, and hope, or how it was, what happened, and how it is now, I would meet Linda. Which I'm not going to tell her story. I sure don't know how she'd feel about that. But Linda was in a very abusive relationship for 20 years, raising 4 children, 3 of them with special needs. And I don't know, you talk about 2 damaged motherfuckers, right? But I feel like, as horrible as that was, as horrible as many of an experience that I've had was, it all came to be a blessing today. I don't know if I would have done anything different. Well, that's enough out of me. Today is Mr. Logan's birthday. He's over there licking his ass right now. I'm going to make him a nice little special pate treat. We're going to do our guy thing and jam some guitar and watch some YouTube and hang for a minute and wait for mommy to get home today. I love you guys.